Today, we are here to talk about the top 10 most annoying things about FPV today.
That's right.
That's
Because
right.
it doesn't matter if you're starting or have been flying forever, there's always something that's going to annoy you. There's always that one thing that's going to keep you on the bench. There's always that one time you're going to spend 5 hours building, go out to the field, drive 2 hours to the spot, and nothing arms.
Yeah.
But there is equivalent to all those things, and why can't we just fly all the time, Bardwell? Why can't we do it?
I don't know, man. There's always something that gets in the way. This hobby is incredibly rewarding, but then also incredibly frustrating. If it wasn't so rewarding, it wouldn't be worth it. But what we're gonna pick on today are 10 specific things that are really annoying about FPV. And I think the one that we have to start with is everything is always out of stock. Number 10. Everything's out of stock. Always.
You can't get it. There's the huge Vista drought right now. We finally have an HD system. It came out of nowhere. Nobody knew it was coming. We can't believe our eyeballs. People thought it was going to be 10 years away just last year. And now that we have it, they've released the updates and you can't buy the units.
Yeah.
You can only have one or two quads. What are you supposed to do? They're selling bind and flies right now that come with no video system because they're like, well, just throw your own in there.
Yeah. So can you get a Vista? We can't. I
Yeah.
hope. Good luck. Good luck. But it's more than just the Vista. I mean, before the great pandemic drought of 2020, everything was out of stock a lot. But ever since the pandemic started, now everything is like you literally just cannot find anything good in stock. It's out of stock forever. So here's what I say. People are like, when will such and such a product be in stock? And I'm like, it's coming into stock. But like you get 50 or 100 at a time and the back order list is 200, 300 people long. You will never see a product that you want actually in stock. If you do, buy it. And if you don't, just back order it and just wait and it'll come like Christmas. That's my advice.
That's true. And so, what I'm curious about is the issue manufacturing capacity? Do the companies not have the budget to hire a replenishment analyst like a larger company retailer would do that have people forecast the buying and selling seasonality of these goods in order to keep them in stock? Or is it just a matter of everybody's fighting for the same pool of components? And then once that bottleneck is reached, it doesn't matter how many people you got forecasting, you still can't make them.
Yeah, I think there's truth to both of that. I think before the disruption to the global supply chain that happened in early 2020, the issue was that the FPV hobby moves so fast. So you can have a hot product that everybody wants and like 2 months later, something else has come out and nobody wants it anymore. And no vendor wants to be stuck with parts that they have to liquidate. So people just wouldn't put in very big orders, especially because you might order 1,000 of something and by the time it gets manufactured and shipped over from China, it's 2 months later and it's just too big of a risk. But now it seems like there's even manufacturing side disruptions. I mean, I don't know. I'm not over in China. So what's number 9?
Number 9 is the quality of the stuff is out of control. There's overall just shit quality on some of the hardware and a lot of times zero customer service. I've had quads review copies and on the third plugin, the thing just lights into a giant fireball. In fact, you beat me to one of those videos on one of those, and so I didn't even bother making that video. It was like, well, everyone knows it's going to light your house on fire, so just don't plug it in inside.
What product was it?
And that was the Falco X Diatone Cube. I think you made a video. Mine had the exact same thing, and I was just lucky that I was outside when I was trying it out.
And I told them about what happened, and they were like, "Did you turtle mode it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I turtle moded it. Turtle mode is a thing. You're turtle," and they're like, "No, don't turtle mode it. The ESC will blow up." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Okay." Yeah, quality control is so hit or miss. There are certainly some brands that do it better than others, but so often it like you look at the actual quality of a product like a Sony TV or an LG TV or an actual consumer product and the defect rate is so low, and the quality is very high, and it just feels like a lot of the stuff in the FPV hobby, they just design it, they slap it, and they basically don't even plug it in. They just put it in a box, ship it, and like if it blows up in your face, maybe they send you another one, but that kind of not what people come to expect when they're coming from like literally any other hobby.
Yeah, I have seen that push people out because they're like, okay, I tried 3 things, they didn't work. This isn't for me. It's not for me. And it's sometimes the small things. And you know, I used to have a running joke with the guys in my crew that there was some factory worker at Caddx that would sprinkle a little bit of dust on the sensor of every camera before they shipped them out, because it seemed like a lot of those early Caddx EOS cameras, they just would always have dust, and that's like, you know, basically just a plug-in. They could verify that wasn't an issue. And so there are some that really stand by that stuff a lot, and some of them you just will send emails like that go out.
Number 8 on the list, T-motor. Hey, what size is your motor? Oh, it's a F60. What size is that? Oh, it's a F40. Oh, it's a F90. It's a F80. It's a T20. Can you just frickin' tell me the size of the frickin' motor, T-motor?
That's so annoying. They can come out with a T1000 and I wouldn't know if it's an X-Class or a Whoop motor. They're basically F40, F60. They're basically telling you F you if you want to know what the size of that motor is.
And I know what size motor an F40 and F60 is, but I'm just saying, why do you make us jump through the extra hoop, T-motor? Why you gotta make it difficult?
Annoying.
Oh my God.
Next up on the list is camera releases. You know, it seems like every other month there's a new Predator coming out. They're up to like the Predator 13, it seems like. And every time, not every time, but sometimes it's the same sensor, the same lens, the same case, but somehow new, beautiful, spectacular picture. Are they just tweaking the settings, slapping a new number and releasing it out into the market again? Could Canon or Sony or Nikon get away with anything close to that? Is it just because it's a $30 camera instead of a $3,000 camera? But people buy them. They're like, oh, Predator 5, Predator 7, I need it.
Okay, number 6 on the most annoying things in FPV. And this is not a product or anything. This is a thing that people do. Stop making your relatives or your coworkers watch your flight edits. Now, I don't mean like if they're like, oh, hey, what is that? What is that? Show them a flight edit. But don't make them. Nobody wants to watch a 4-minute flight edit unless you're in FPV, and even then, half the time I don't want to watch your whole flight edit. I'm gonna watch like 2 minutes of it and be like, no, this guy's pretty good, and then move on. Stop making the most annoying thing, making people watch your flight edits.
Yes, that, and you gotta pay attention when you're talking to your spouse or your buddies or whatever. Whenever if you're for the 10th time saying, well, I saw this drone guy say, or I had this drone that did this, and people's eyes just kind of start glazing over, that's when you know you got to wrap it up and talk about something that they actually care about besides
overexposure to FPV, forcing, this is true in all hobbies, forcing your hobby on other people. But there's something about FPV that, like, you watch your flight edit and you're like, this is so good. You watch your own flight edit like 10, 15 times in a row, and then you're like, hey honey, watch this. No, wait, we haven't got to the good. Where are you going?
Yeah.
Just stop, just let it go. A little taste.
It's torture. Okay, number 5 that you touched on the other day was you're screwed. Every time you order a frame and you get those screws that are different lengths, you know, and sometimes the motor manufacturers do give it a good old try. They give you 2 different lengths of screws. But they might give you screws for a 4mm arm or a 5mm arm. But what if you order the Apex and now you got 6mm arms? You're screwed. So
you're screwed if you don't get the right length of screws for your frame. The screws will be too long. They can damage the motors. You fry a brand new set of motors because you use too long of screws. There are some exceptions. Emax, for example, people are telling me Emax includes 3 different sizes of screw with their motors, so you could pick and choose. And there are definitely frame manufacturers who also include the correct length of screws. One of the things people said to me when I made this point was, well, the motor bases aren't the same size, so how are the frame manufacturers to know how thick the motor base is. I don't think that's true at all. Most motor bases will work with the same size screw, in my opinion. I mean, for a given, like for a 5-inch quad, the motor base is about the same thickness.
I haven't seen any different.
All right. That drives me crazy. Like, you get a frame, you don't have screws for it. No.
Oh, it'll keep you on the bench. You won't fly.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, pre-orders. It seems like lately people are launching products. Sometimes the YouTubers will get them. Sometimes I'll even get them. But you can't get them. No. Has anybody been waiting for the last several months for that savior of FPV quad, the FlyWoo Explorer? I've had my review copy on order for a few months, and it doesn't seem like it's going to show up anytime soon. Soon, are these guys going to start announcing pre-orders before they've even started designing the product? What is up with these pre-orders?
Yeah, if you're going to make a Kickstarter, call it a Kickstarter. Don't call it a pre-order. And it bugs me because, like, I'll get a product and I'll be like, okay, this looks good, I'm going to review it. And I don't always know. And people, if I put a video out and people are like, oh, you got one, and no one can get it for months, sometimes they'll even change the product. They'll send me a product for review. Then they'll, like, by the time people are ordering it, it's not even the same product anymore. But if you're going to release a product, release the product. If don't put pre-orders for maybe a couple weeks of pre-order is okay, but not like months and months and months.
Right. Have a launch date. Not just we'll get around to it.
All right. This is one of my personal pet peeves. As somebody who spends hours a day helping people with their problems, FrSky, back in the day, there was just the EU firmware and the FCC firmware. And if your FrSky receiver wouldn't bind, that was basically, and D8 and D16, and that was it. And now we've got EU, FCC, D8, D16, ACCST, firmware 2.1, pre 2.1, flex firmware, R9, OTA. And if you won't bind, it's too many freaking firmwares. FrSky, it's too many.
It's way too many, and it's to the point where we'll have new people showing up. And generally, as a community, the best way to get flying is to find your local race or freestyle chapter. Go meet them, go ask them questions. If they have a Discord, get on there. And lately, nobody knows how to work this stuff. So when people show up with it, it's like, have you ever heard of Crossfire?
Yeah.
Because it's like, we have no idea. The only person that probably knows is you. So we're like, go watch the Bardwell channel.
Thank you. I would love to say it was that simple, but I got to tell you, my advice is just flash the firmware. If it won't bind, like, don't guess because this ties into it. With some receivers, there is no easy way to know what firmware is on the receiver. So the only thing to do is to flash the freaking receiver with a firmware that you know will work. And then if you got an RXSR, you're in good shape because it just plugs right in, right? But if you got an XM Plus or some other receivers, you got to freaking solder up. You got to solder up a header so you can flash it. Every time you got to flash it, how do you flash it?
It's the worst. And for new people, when we're helping them, it's like, we don't know, did you wire it up right? Did you put it to the right UART on your flight controller? Did you put it to the right UART on your ports tab? There's all kinds of, so it becomes a super complex problem to help someone troubleshoot. And oh man, I think a lot of people just quit right there and just say, forget this. I'm going back to skateboarding.
If it won't bind, it just updates the firmware and then it binds. Yes. Best thing TBS ever did. So I mean, they've done many things, but yeah. Okay. Receiver, FrSky, the whole FrSky receiver ecosystem in general. FrSky, now I will say this. FrSky has a new set of receivers out called Archer receivers. They ship with Access firmware on them, and they do over-the-air firmware updates. This, maybe, like in a year, when all this other stuff is kind of fallen off, maybe we'll finally be able to clear this one. But for now, definitely up there on the list of most annoying things in FPV.
If they don't change it. Number 2. This is my biggest pet peeve personally in FPV, and it is vtxtables. The Betaflight developers you have to give them credit because they are probably one of the most prolific open source teams in any industry. They're basically making this entire industry possible. They make things easier, they make things better, the PIDs, the filters, but one thing that's been introduced in the past year or 18 months is vtxtables. Oh my gosh, I've seen new pilots, experienced pilots, pro-level racers, and even YouTubers that can't seem to get one quad or another to change their channel, and it's all because of this. Now, I do realize that there's some regulatory issues that make this a necessity, but please find an easier way to implement it. At least give us some sort of default that works, even if it's only on 25 milliwatt or something, because
I mean, if you have a Crossfire receiver and you hook it up to your TBS Unify or any smart audio VTX, it just works. Like, I don't know how they do it, but it just works. It just detects and it works. And I agree with you. The Betaflight devs have arguments for why they do it this way. And maybe those arguments are valid, but from a strictly user perspective, it is super annoying. On top of that, if the VTX table is configured wrong, then the video transmitter locks itself at 25 milliwatts. It doesn't really say what's going on. It's just like, no, I don't really like this. And then people like it. They think it's working, but it's not working. They don't know if it's working. I've literally been in a situation where I wasn't sure whether my VTX table was right. And I had to hook up a power meter to my video transmitter. And as I changed the power levels, I was like, oh, it doesn't seem to support 600 milliwatts. I mean, I thought it did, but the power, I can see the powers. That's what I had to do to get the VTX table working right. And for all the reasons it is that way, I think we can agree it is one of the most annoying things.
And I've had instances where you go to the manufacturer website, it gives you a table to copy and paste in the CLI. You go to Oscar Liang, it gives you one. You go to a YouTuber channel and get one, and only one of those three is right. So now you're on the bench wondering, like, okay, did I hook it up wrong? Did I do something wrong? It's I can't imagine as a new builder what kind of frustration that might put you into. But that is one point. If you get TBS with TBS, then it kind of takes that out of the mix.
All right, last thing, and this is the thing that got us started to make this video, and I feel like it's just like you and me and like 5 other people are the only ones who find this incredibly annoying, but it's our video. So OpenTX 2.4, there are all these features that are supposed to be introduced in OpenTX 2.4. Support for the FrSky Nirvana coming in OpenTX 2.4. That radio came out 2 years ago. What else is coming in OpenTX 2.4?
Where are the features? Where are they at, though?
Crossfire shot. Yeah.
And it's like,
Crossfire
if you've
shot?
ever tasted that on your Tango 2, but you normally fly a different radio, you can't help but want it on there. And unless you're willing to spend a couple of hours going through the videos, making sure you got the right thing. Mike Chen's made some pretty good tutorials. You've made some pretty good tutorials. So there are resources, but it's like, I said like 6 months ago, I'm just going to wait for 2.4 and not worry about flashing. And now it's nowhere in sight. Where is it?
And what's confusing about it is that there's all these nightly builds. So if you want to run Crossfire Shot, you can get the TBS nightly build. But if you want to run Ghost, you can get the Immersion RC nightly build. And if you want to run FrSky Nirvana, you can get the Nirvana nightly build. But all of these things are supposed to be in OpenTX 2.4, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it hasn't come. I don't think it's ever going to come. It's driving me crazy.
That's so annoying. Well, I don't know about you, Bardwell, but I feel better getting some of that off of my chest. Is this what it's like to help people learn stuff? I kind of like it.
I also feel better getting some of that stuff off my chest. You know, there's a lot of frustrating and annoying parts of this hobby, but obviously there's a lot of joy in it. But sometimes you just got to sit down and vent. I would love to hear from the people in the comments what we missed. What do you think is the most annoying thing in FPV?
Tell
Tell
us,
us in the
get it off
comments,
your
and we'll
chest.
we'll
That's
make another
FPV
video.
therapy. Make you
That's
feel
right.
so much better. So thanks to you, Bardwell, for having me on your show, on your channel. This has been awesome. You think you can introduce me to Mr. Steele?
I don't. He doesn't take my calls. He doesn't take my calls. Thank you, Jon, for coming out. Link to Jon's channel, if you don't already follow him, is obviously in the video description. You got a lot of great content, man. Very creative stuff. I really like your take on stuff. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. I gotta go because like my bread's almost done. I threw some bread in the oven just before we started this video, and now the bread's almost done. So I gotta go. Thank you so much, Jon, and happy flying to all of you. What are you doing in here? The least you could do is subscribe or join my Patreon or like just here's another video I picked out for you. Jeez.